Chelsea have revived their interest in Crystal Palace and Ivory Coast forward Wilfried Zaha, but Barcelona and Gabon striker Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang remains their number one priority. However, Manchester United have also inquired about a potential transfer move for Aubameyang. The agent of Manchester United and Portugal forward Cristiano Ronaldo has returned to Chelsea, investigating whether a move to Stamford Bridge is possible for the 37-year-old. Ajax are targeting Chelsea and Morocco winger Hakim Ziyech as a replacement for Anthony after accepting a bid from Manchester United for the Brazil international. Chelsea have offered Everton Albania striker Armando Broja and England midfielder Conor Gallagher plus £25 million in return for 21-year-old English attacker Anthony Gordon. Barcelona and Netherlands midfielder Frenkie de Jong is expected to stay at the Nou Camp this summer despite interest from Manchester United, Chelsea and Liverpool. Liverpool are considering a move for Sheffield United and Norway midfielder Sander Berge. Leicester and Everton are considering a late move for Al Hilal's Brazilian attacker Matheus Pereira. Valencia are confident of beating Real Sociedad to the signing of Edinson Cavani and are set to offer the Uruguay forward a 2-year deal. Tottenham and Spain defender Sergio Reguilon is set to join Atletico Madrid on loan with no buy option included. Spurs and England midfielder Harry Winks is closing in on a move to Sampdoria after initially holding out for possible Premier League interest. Chelsea have decided their English defender Trevoh Chalobah will not leave the club this summer despite holding talks with Inter Milan, AC Milan and RB Leipzig over possible loan deal. Chelsea are hoping to beat Tottenham and Crystal Palace to the signing of Peterborough English defender Ronnie Edwards. Spezia are set to sign Wales midfielder Ethan Ampadu from Chelsea on a loan deal with an option to buy worth around €15 million, £12.7 million.